to our Facebook, Instagram Live with Zia and with Kimmana back in Australia. So we're still in Australia now. Yep. And then
we're at my family's health retreat, the Alive Day, and we're in the week between two Vitality Now detoxes. We just did one last week, there's a week gap, and then another one is starting this coming Friday.
We have what's supposed to be a break, but for Kimmana, he's still busy giving sessions.
Yeah, the week off in between is catching up on all the other things I couldn't do for that week.
So what is this week's topic?
This week's topic is about balanced exercise.
What does balance even mean?
Balance. Well, balance is to understand that there's not a good or a bad in something, that there is qualities of different things that you want to find the perfect weight between. It's sort of getting rid of this good or bad thing and getting into this, everything has a benefit and a challenge to it. And we want to be able to look at what's the right amount of that quality. So if it's hot and cold, then what's the right ratio between hot and cold? Not that one is better or the other, or heavy or light. What's the right ratio between these things? So balance is understanding what are the things that we're going to weigh up, and then what's the perfect sitting point between those, which could change in different situations.
I just need to make sure that please don't, shake the table.
I'm likely to use my hands and shake the table. Sorry, cameras. Yeah.
Just smash it on the camera will shake too.
Yeah.
Okay. Balance is basically nothing is good or bad. It's just an analogy like scale.
Like scales, yeah.
So is that means we need to always kind of live there? Wouldn't that be boring, especially for someone like me?
Yeah. Balance is always going that life is meant to be a little bit of chaos. It's not about things don't move. It's meant to be that life is designed to go through this fluctuating pulse. And it's our ability to be able to listen to the moment and weigh up what's happening inside the time of day, the season, the environment, the place, and go, in this environment, this is going to be the ideal balance point. So it's weighing up all of those and not staying stagnant, but going, now I need to heat a little bit, and knowing when it's time to cool a little bit and when it's time to heat a little bit. And yes, we do want to walk a little bit more of the middle path and maybe not be playing a life of extreme balance all the time. Yet, life is bound to go out of balance. And if you can play with that in a more even way, then longevity is achieved. Through balance, we preserve the health of the body.
Talking about extreme balance, what do you mean by that?
An extreme balance might be a detox-retox approach. So go and eat junk food and all sorts of other things and then go into extreme dieting that's going on. Or, I'm getting really cold and I wait until it's very cold and then I eat very intense warming food or put on excessive warming things. Rather than taking extreme approaches to balance back and forth, we could take smaller steps towards balance approaches. A lot of people in a Western mindset are very attracted towards extreme. How can I do this in a very polarized way? It's like, I've got toxins, so therefore I need to cleanse, I need to detoxify, and they'll go for the most strongest way to detoxify the body, rather than looking at, how could I just do that gently? Because the other side of detoxification is to nourish. Everyone needs to have this nourish, detoxify. And sometimes not so good to go, detoxify, 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 and then nourish, nourish. We need a gentle amount of both, depending on the person and person.
Okay. So balance, ideally, it will be, like a lifestyle. Instead of a daily lifestyle, to be precise, instead of do this A and then you do the total opposite. So it's ideally you bring that awareness to bring the balanced mindset to everything that you do in life. Is that what
everything that we do, that's right. The balanced mindset needs to go into every domain of life. And the Vedic system has a special way to understand how to connect balance to every domain of life. It doesn't matter what the subject is. They use the same scientific language to be able to understand the balance between all domains of life. And that language is the 5 elements. So in Ayurveda, the medical system of the Vedic sciences, they would use the 5 elements. In the house building of Vastu, of the Vedic science, building houses and those, they use the 5 elements. When it comes to food and cooking, they use the 5 elements. When it comes to astronomy and the stars, they use the 5 elements. It is the balanced language system that connects all subjects of life. And it's the first point that you should really get to know if you want to know more about the Vedic systems and Ayurveda.
So what are those 5 elements?
So the first one is ether or space. In order to create anything, we need a space, an opening, a void. Its qualities are more around omnipresence. It's always there. It's connected to everything. It's light. It's clear. It opens things up. It brings us greater awareness. First one, ether. The next one is air. The air element is related to movement and change, dynamic change, gas, dry, cold, wind. All of these things are associated with the air element. That's number 2. Then we have number 3 is the fire element. It's heat, transformation, spreading and dispersing things. It tends to move upwards and outwards in its dynamic form. Then it goes to the water element. The 4th element is associated with flow and liquids. So any liquid spectrum of life where that liquid is holding together and maintaining form, this is the first element that really brings form. Not yet structure like earth is, but it has form. It's a liquid mass that we can perceive as one connected liquid thing. And it's generally cool, flowing, connected. Then we have the earth element, the 5th out of all of the elements, and it's associated with physical form and structure, holding space, heaviness, thickness, density.
So now because this topic is about a balanced exercise, so we can basically create an exercise regime for us that is balanced using this 5 element system, because this is the system in Ayurveda that is used to create balance. Can we talk more about that?
So basically we'll be applying this model of 5 elements of balance to all different areas of life. In this class we're looking at how it relates to just exercise. So how can we make sure we are having balanced exercise? We'll need to understand first what are the 5 categories of exercise. How do these 5 elements relate to exercise? And then we'll look at how we would balance exercise by understanding these 5 categories. So the first one is the ether element, the space element, and in exercise it relates to stillness. So the ether element doesn't need to move anywhere or go anywhere. It's omnipresent. It means that it is everywhere. We all share the same space. We're all part of this one omnipresent universal space. So this exercise that's associated with that is one that is more stillness, meditation, self-inquiry, less about doing something and more about doing less, going into an introverted space within the psyche, the mind, the spirit, and trying to connect with something much deeper than our thoughts that tend to override and cloud the clear sky of this ether element. So that's one category, ether exercise. The next category is the air element. It relates to exercise that involves more breath. So if the exercise is using a lot of breath, like let's say jogging, then it must have quite a bit of air to it. You have to breathe like this if you're going to jog for a longer distance. So, whereas also movements that are moving the hands in various forms, this is the action organ of air, according to the Vedic sciences. We can affect the 5 elements through 5 different action organs, and we receive sensory information of the 5 elements through 5 sense organs as well. So this is the action organ of air, and if we're using the fingers, the hands within our exercise more, this is quite air. So faster movements or vinyasa type flow movements where they time the movement with the breath. Inhale to move out, exhale to move back in. Inhale to move up, exhale to move back in.
Question.
Movement timed with the breath is quite air.
Question in regards to that. Would that have any relationship between doing vinyasa, moving breath with every movement, with how you feel lightheaded after that?
That's right, because when we do that vinyasa type breath for every movement, it often can get a little bit lightheaded for certain people, especially because they're not slowing down the breath rate so much. A lot of people, when they first tend into this, they're doing a full breath for what is a tiny little movement, whereas a nice balanced vinyasa practice will be slowing it down and integrating some of the other elements even within that air breath.
Okay, so that's ether, air, and then the next one is?
The next one is fire. So the fire element is explosive movements, sharp, quick movements, almost martial arts style movements, especially movements that work with the legs as well. So if we work with the legs a lot, then that's more fire element associated. So we're using fast, explosive movements that work with the legs are going to be very fire.
And after next one?
The next one is the water element. The water element's associated with circular movements, especially circular movements of all of the joints. Also slow stretching, where we're holding a position for a period of time, is also quite water related too. So this is circular movements for the joints, and slow stretching, which is also very associated with the joints and the fascia, is water element.
Wait a second, is it stretching also related with air?
Stretching is both air and water. Stretching for air is more associated with movements. It's more yang style of stretching. It's associated with the muscle and stretching the muscle, whereas stretching in water is softer and held for longer periods of time. It's less about stretching muscles and more about stretching the connective tissue, the fascia, the things around the joints. Holding a position, such as yin yoga would be an example of this style of stretching.
Okay. That's ether, air. Ether is meditation. Air is something that you use a lot of breath. Fire is like martial arts that creates heat.
Explosive movements.
Water is joint rolling, something that is watery.
Yeah. Joint rolling, circular movements. Yeah.
And the fifth
and holding
element,
a stretch. The fifth is strength and conditioning. It's to build strength within the muscles and the bones. It's slower movements. It's working with certain functional patterns. In Ayurvedic trainings, we call them functional movement medicine patterns. So there's certain patterns that we have, such as a push. To do this push pattern slowly and consistently is to build strength and conditioning within this push pattern. That could be a push up or a bench press. Yet there's also another pattern that's a pull back behind us. This builds strength and conditioning in a different area of muscles. So in the Ayurvedic training, we talk about these 9 different functional movement patterns and a range of different exercises that can be used for beginners, medium, or advanced for these 9 patterns that we use within the body. So that's earth, strength and conditioning element exercise. So these are the 5 categories of exercise that we can work with. And good balanced exercise is by using a balance of all of these categories.
why exercise is even important. Like, for me, in the past, I exercise. Well, I never exercise because I'm always kind of slim, because I'm dominant Vata. And then so while people around me, they exercise because they want to lose weight. So I never have the motivation to exercise. Like, what for? I'm already tiny. I'm already slim. So which is something that changed my life after an exercise habit. After I learned about Ayurveda and the importance of exercise, I think it will be important to include in this class about why exercising is even important to put that on our daily habit. Because people are like, okay, exercise once a week, but like 3 hours. Why do we even need to put exercise
as a daily habit?
Yeah.
Because without exercise, we don't get the opportunity to exercise, to work with and release a certain energy in the side of the body. I think it originally comes from like to cut out, to remove something, exercise, to excise something. And it's our opportunity each morning to go, what is it that we need to get rid of? What is it that we want to build up? These are the bits that I'm cutting out, and these are the bits that I'm including. So by doing meditation, we're including stillness, opening the mind, being able to intuitively interpret the best messages and decisions in our life and day. By including air element, we're able to move the energy through the nervous system free stagnant thoughts that are stuck inside the system open up the energy and electrical flow of the body. By doing fire element exercise, we're able to turn on our metabolism, chew fat. This would be what most people, when they think of the word exercise, they've really just thought about fire element exercise, burning mass, burning fat and getting slimmer and those things. Without water element exercise, we often get a lot of stagnation in the joints. Disease builds up in the joints very easily. It's where the circulation doesn't flow as easily.
So the disease exercise in the joint, like the main...
What diseases would happen? All diseases will start through stagnation in the joints in some way.
Really?
Circulation can't flow out towards the area as much, can't flow back. And then the doshas often build up at these sites, at the joints. Chinese medicine, so many hand points, special points in the hands and the feet that will influence disease across the rest of the body. Because there's so many joints here inside the hands and the feet.
That's why I love reflexology so much.
Exactly, because it works with a lot of these stagnation areas where energy will tend to block. Whether it's Vata, Pitta, Kapha or Ama, these are the disease-forming influences. They will often get stuck at the joints of the body first, and then they will set off disease cascades. So the water element exercise means we have full range of movement of the joints, and we release stagnation in the joints. Without the earth element exercise, the strength and conditioning, we won't have the resources in the body, the muscle mass to be able to rely upon and direct into our day.
So what's balance means? Like, is that balance means everyone needs to do the same kind of balance?
Balance means assessing time, season, place, and individual. It's always looking at those things and seeing, oh, okay, what's the elements associated with the time of day? Is it the middle of the day? The middle of the day is very hot. It's associated with fire element. So therefore, I'm not going to do as much fast, sharp, explosive movements that are going to be happening at the peak of the middle of the day because it's already a fire time of day. So we're assessing time, season. Maybe it was the fire time of the day and it was summer. Even less sharp, explosive movements at that time of the day. Place, what's the place like? Is it appropriate for me to do these fire movements with these people and what's around? And what's the individual? How much of each element does that individual need? So you'll be looking at all of those factors and going, oh, what's the elements in time, in season, in place, and individual? And then going, this is the most ideal for this person right now. Now that can be a bit complex. That's a lot to add up. So as a beginner, you're just starting to go, am I getting all elements? Do I have all 5 elements of exercise in my general weekly routine? Am I using a little bit of all of them? It would be even better if you can get them all into one day's exercise, yet at least do I have all 5 elements over my week? Am I using all of those exercises? Because if you start to excess in one area, let's just say you go with meditation all the time, and then sometimes a lot of meditation without the other areas can lead to a bit of spaciness and lack of action in life. It's going to tap you into some deep divine message and let go of your individuality and those things. And they're great things to decrease the ego. Yet at the same time, it may also go, oh, well, not as much purpose to act if I'm in that deep state of meditation all the time.
What they want to do in life. I want to be unattached.
That's totally fine. That's their goal. That may not be the goal of Ayurveda. Equilibrium of balance, longevity, achieving life in form and maintaining the form long term. Totally fine for them to have their own individual goal, yet excess of any one element might not lead to the most longevity in health. Some people's goal will be to become enlightened and die off at 60, and they're totally fine with that because their goal is on consciousness or other things and not on something in form. But if your goal is related to, let's say, creating serious action and change and in the metabolism, then a little bit of fiery movements enables the body to still have that domain of life being built in their body and mind. A little bit of air movements is going to bring in new creativity, new life, transmute the energy through the body, distribute and open areas. Yet excessive air movements could bring about nervous system challenges, wasting disorders, dryness and thinness. So each element has a certain ratio of what it will start to go, oh, now it's becoming too much for that person.
As a beginner, you don't really, without understanding Ayurveda, and then you're like, oh yeah, I think this feels balanced for me.
Yeah.
Like jogging is good for me because I feel great after that. So how do you assess what's,
This is complex. If you want to get into individuality, you really do need to see someone for them to be able to assess your individuality, to know which elements and doshas are dominant in the time, season, place, and you as an individual, and decide the most exercise balanced program for you. Yet that's not going to be answered within such a 30-minute talk.
Okay.
What can be answered is that you want to check your life and go, am I doing all 5? And that's your first step. Do you have all 5 of these elements as part of your exercise weekly program, or even better, daily program? And then I'd start to look at which ones are the least likely to do any damage to anyone. And they're the elements that are on either side. Ether and earth are the least likely to challenge people. So meditation and strength and conditioning. If you get those 2 polarities of the spectrum going well, then usually the 2 in the middle tend to work themselves out. Meditation, strength and conditioning. And then besides that, someone could individualize them for you. Very obvious things could be, oh, I'm fiery, I'm overheated, I'm hot, I've got ligament and tendon things. These are fire type imbalances. So therefore you go, oh, maybe I'll need to reduce fire. Oh, my joints are really open and loose, and floppy, excess fluid building in the body. Then yin yoga, joint rolling might not be the best choice for you. That's water element exercise. If your body is huge and you're holding a lot of extra mass and size, then the earth strength and conditioning might not be your dominant area to focus on. So it's all a little bit individualized as we go there. But if you know what element you're dominant in, then you would reduce a little bit of that element in your exercise and increase more of the elements that you have less of.
Would you agree on the saying that something that is the hardest, the most difficult, that is the less like us, is actually the one that we need the most?
It's very common that what we're attracted to is what we're familiar with and easy with, and not necessarily what's most balancing for us. And often the one that's more challenging and we're resistant to is often the one that we do need to bring a little bit more of in our life as well.
Okay.
First check, do I have meditation as part of my daily or weekly exercise program? Then look at what is your own dominant element or environment. Start to think about these elements as qualities. You might need to look out the 5 elements as exercise PDF that's off the Balanced Life website, or have a look at some of the other articles from Kimmana.com or Ayurvedic to see, which element am I dominant in? Then from there you can start to reduce the one that's excessive and increase the other ones. If you're not sure, meditation and strength and conditioning exercises, they are the first either ends of the spectrum that everyone should include. If you're not able to do them all, just get in a little bit. This morning I was a little rushed, different things going on. So I got up, I did 5 minutes of meditation looking at the sun, and then I did strength and conditioning of one movement pattern, specific movement pattern for the backs of the legs and the buttocks, the key area of my body that's the most important for me. And I finished my exercise in 10 minutes. That's not ideal. Most days isn't like that. Yet today, that was what had to happen. So I always just fit in the tiniest bit, and I still did meditation and strength and conditioning. People have shown again and again in research studies, people that have a balanced exercise practice are more able to achieve in their life, have more successful and happy relationships with others, be calmer in their mind, more focused. It goes into so many areas, providing that we first work on our body. Our relationship to those elements elsewhere in life will also be affected. Chinese medicine and Ayurveda both have a 5-element system. The Ayurvedic system is a little bit easier to understand in relation to a Western science mind. The 5 elements fit with things that we'll find in the body. The Chinese system is wonderful as well. The metaphors are different though. They have elements like wood and metal, and you won't find them directly in the same way in the body. They're metaphors to understand actions and the way in which energy moves and other things. Both beautiful systems. Find that the Ayurvedic one you'll be able to use much quicker and easier.
Because it's the wording.
Because the wording and the language is designed to easier understand and fit with a Western science model. It doesn't have as much complex relationships. The Chinese medicine has more complex relationships between the elements. The Ayurvedic system is starting at a very simple way where you can use it quite easily, quickly.
There is, if you want to learn more about the 5-element system, there's an article that Kimmana wrote on our website, balancelife.id. It's both in English and Indonesian. And there's also a 5 elements chart where you can print it and put it in your fridge, what Kimmana usually recommends to people, so you can remember it at any time.
The best time to exercise is in the morning. Meditation or introspective exercise is ideal just before the sun comes up. More fiery, warming exercise is ideal just after the sun goes up, before breakfast sometime. Yet, any time is a good idea for exercise. You just got to look at the elements associated with the moment. The main one to be aware of is if it's too hot, decrease fire element exercise within the program. And besides that, any time is a good idea for exercise. We can split the day cycle into doshas, Vata, Pitta, Kapha. These are disease-forming languages from Ayurveda. So the beginning part of the day cycle is Kapha. It starts from 6 to 10 a.m. The middle of the day is Pitta. It goes from 10 till 2. The afternoon is Vata from 2 to 6 p.m. Then the cycle starts again at night as it goes around. So he is referring to exercising in the Kapha time of the day. This time is associated with more heavy elements like earth and water in the morning period, 6 to 10 a.m. It's why it's so beneficial to do some form of exercise after the sun rises in that period there. Wake the body up, warm the body up, stimulate a lot of actions inside the body. We make more serotonin, happiness, enthusiasm for the day if we exercise in the morning. It's great to know the ideal of this time of the day is ideal, but the realistic is so much more important than the ideal.
Yeah.
If that's the only time you can exercise, great, do it then.
How long we need to exercise? The ideal time. I remember about the sweat on the forehead.
There's lots of different things there. Ayurveda would say in relation to heat and cold, this is one of the qualities that you're adding up, is that you should exercise to the point every day where you're starting to sweat. Yet, if sweat is coming out on the forehead or the top, then it's starting to get too warm inside the body for it to regulate the temperatures evenly. So we should approach that point of sweat on the forehead, cool it back with other elements for a period of time. Approach the point of sweat on the forehead. Cool it back with other elements. Approach the point of sweat on the forehead. We can keep doing this many different times, and that depends on the individual.
So it's not just sweat once, oh yeah, I'm already sweating, I'm done, no?
That might be for some people. A person with a lot of heat or a lot of deficiency inside the body, a very Vata aggravated person in the latest stage of their life.
Again, depends what is your goal.
Depends on what the goal is at that time and that person and how much heat we needed to build inside their system. So,
a very Ayurvedic answer. It depends.
It always depends. Yeah. Once we're over 70, we're in a Vata stage of life. So we'd be reducing the air element ones, which can be a bit drying. So not as much of the faster vinyasa flow movements that are there. Not as much of the fire movements as well, with sharp focus and intensity. You still want a little bit of them in each day. Tiny little pieces of those. Yet the most specific areas to focus on once over 70 are earth and water. These are the two elements that will reduce the most once we're over 70. So strength and conditioning, slow movement, strength and conditioning, gentle circular movements through each one of the joints. These would be the two areas for someone over 70. And meditation, good for everyone. how you could bring that meditative element into strength and conditioning would be what I would focus on. So your strength and conditioning is done as a meditative, slow, fully aware exercise as you're going through those patterns.
Instead of going to the gym with active wear and pumping music.
No. Yeah, keep it meditative. No.
Okay.
Okay, we're done with all the questions for today. If you're interested to study or learn with us in the future, then we have a range of different events that are upcoming. The big one that's coming up soon is the Ayurvedic Holistic Yoga Therapist. It's a 200-hour, 1-month live-in event in Bali. It's quite a beautiful center that it's there, and it teaches you about the whole Ayurvedic foundation curriculum. So understanding yoga therapies and how to guide someone else to self-heal through movement, meditation, things that they eat, digestive therapies, and also bodywork and healing, how to use touch to help someone heal. A level 1, 2, and a 3 bodywork, a level 1, 2, and a 3 yoga therapist, 6 modules together for 1 month live-in training in Bali. If you're interested to learn more, you can see more about that on the
Ayurvedicyoga.com.
Right.
Have a good day.
Great
Bye.
to share. Bye.